Hi guys, Juliana here, and we're live for our Saturday Q&A. And today the topic that I would like to talk to you guys about is on how to eat healthy during challenging times like the one we're facing right now, that it has become really not really difficult, but it's increasingly difficult to get access to fresh produce if we're trying to not go to the grocery store as much. Um, and let me just open here. But also how to make good choices to really stretch your groceries so that we're reducing food waste and really keeping the food that you have purchased and brought into the house as long as possible. So there's a couple of different things that I wanted to share with you today. So I made a little list so I don't forget. So the first thing is let's talk about how to keep food from going bad, I would say. And one of the things that I love that I have is this little guy here. And that is what we call like a herb box, I guess. And the cool thing, there's three cool features about this. The first one, and I don't know if you can see the little holes here, but this is a way for you can close or open to allow the herbs to breathe a little bit. And the second thing is you can tell the container opens like that so you can grab what you need. But inside this little sort of green holder has little feet. So as you wash your herbs and you put them in here, often in times what makes them go bad faster is when they sit in moisture. So because of the little feet, there's a little bit of empty space here. The water drains to the bottom, keeping them fresh longer. So if you have access to fresh herbs, a little herb box like this works. This one I got from PC, so a superstore or any of those stores within the President's Choice banner. The second thing is if you have, say, some fresh fruit, and in this case specifically, I'm talking like lemons and limes. A lot of my clients like putting lemons and limes in their water. And of course, if you're not going to the store for a while, it may be a little hard to keep them fresh. So you can get any fun. So this is like a fun shape, but you can just get like plain ones and get a like ice cube tray. So you can actually, let me just see something here, that you can actually just gotta like squeeze the lemon or lime juice. If possible, you can even like shave off a little bit of the skin if it's well washed, just to get a bit of that zest in there. Fill some water and freeze. So instead of having to get the fresh fruit or buy something processed, you can have like your water flavoring sort of fruits frozen in an ice cube tray. The next thing to show you are the reusable. I mentioned that in an earlier post, the reusable beeswax food wrap. And Abigo is out, I believe they're the sort of inventors of the technology early on, but there's other brands in the market. Those are the ones that I really love and use. And they are also the sponsors, one of the sponsors of our Recipe for Change fitness and nutrition program. And the cool thing about them, and I don't have a container here per se, so I'm going to use my water bottle. But what you can do is you put it on the surface that you want to cover. And then you just by using your hands, it actually forms to the shape of your container so that you don't have to use the saran wrap that is a single-use plastic, right? You can use these guys, then you just stretch it. If it gets a little dirty, you can wash with some mild soap, let it dry, and you can reuse it several times. The package that I have here, which is the variety 3, it comes with 3 shapes. So this is the small size, and they also have 2 large sizes as well. Okay. Now, the next thing is how to actually stretch your food. So one of the things that I have been doing in my Instagram, which is called naturally.joyous, and in some of the recipes here at the Healthy Habits Project, is really using the concept of meat on the side. So actual animal proteins like a chickens and pork and beef and so on, they tend to be quite more expensive on a weight comparison to the plant-based proteins such as your beans and legumes and things like that. So really what I've been doing is showing how to utilize plant sources when we would normally think of meats. Meats are also more, it takes more space to freeze them in your freezer if you're trying to shop for a couple of weeks at a time. So having like dry beans and dry lentils in your pantry are helpful. So one of the recipes I share on my Instagram, which is naturally.joyous, was a way to make meatballs high in protein and fiber with half of the meat. So if it's something that you're interested, you can check it out. um, Let me see. But really the concept is, as much as you can, stretch the meat by using like plant protein sources. The other way that I have been recommending to some people, and I want to just to share here with you guys, is in order to just make even something like a nutritious mineral broth. One of the things that I do, and I just recently made one, so I don't have leftovers to show you, but I keep like a Tupperware container in the freezer. And as you're cooking through the week, I'm talking carrot tops, or when you peel veggies, as long as it's really properly washed and it's something soft skin like carrots, for example, or you're cutting off like the tops of broccoli and or the stems of broccoli or whatever, you keep all of that produce left over as long as it's well washed. And I put it into this freezer Tupperware container in my freezer. So you keep mixing it out the whole week. When it gets to the end of the week, you're gonna have this variety of, you know, veggie tops and peeled skin and whatnot. And then what I recommend with you is that you add like 4 cups of water, 4 or 5, depending on how much you have, and you boil that in low heat. Just it boiled and you simmer in low heat for a couple of hours. And you can add some extra herbs. Sometimes I tell people you can actually add some seaweed like dose or kelp just to bring some more minerals in there. Season with a little sea salt if you may. You strain all the veggies, then you toss them, but then you have this vegetable broth that is just amazing, and you can either drink it or just use it to cook with instead of just tossing the veggies. Um, okay. The next tip to stretch your groceries. So say that things are starting to go a little bit. So your greens are getting a little wilty or your carrots getting a little soft. So the 2 tips that I use is that when the veggies start to get a little wilty, um, if it is something such as spinach or baby kale, what I do is that I take the leftovers, I chop them with a knife just to break it down, then I freeze it. Because then when you take it off the freezer, it's easier to break it in pieces if it's pre-chopped. Or you can throw it on a stir fry or a smoothie to really make sure that there's no, fresh good produce going to waste. For carrots, the tip is actually pretty interesting. All you have to do before you peel them, if they're getting a little soft, you just put them in a bowl with cold water, so like water with ice cubes, and you just let them put them in and let them just like sit in cold water, usually after like 10-15 minutes. And then when you get them off, they're crisp and hard again. So if you really like, just to eat, munch on crispy carrots and you forgot that you had them and they're getting a bit soft, try soaking them into icy water for 10-15 minutes, maybe longer if they're really soft, and see if you get results. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say. Yeah, so 2 last things. So again, to be able to eat healthy during times that we're relying on pantries and more canned products and so on, I think it is really crucial to try finding ways to bring veggies and live foods into your diet as much as possible. So one thing, and I share this with a sushi recipe in my Instagram that I have been using, and this is a product I found at Costco. Um, it's like a brown rice with dehydrated veggie pieces. So essentially, like we normally don't need a lot of rice, but if you are looking for a pantry stable carb source that you can use in a pinch, this is a good option because it has tons and tons of veggies dehydrated in it. So when you cook the rice, the veggies kind of rehydrate, and then you have access to veggies that may be a little hard to access right now. And last but not least, and this is probably the best thing you could do if you were able to source the materials for it, but it's sprouting. So sprouting is one of those things that I believe are super underutilized. And I've done a previous live video on sprouting. So if you're curious about how to sprout and not sure, just search the search box in this group or scroll down a lot until you find the post. But it's another video that I did that's what I talked about. And the cool thing about sprouting is, depending on what you're sprouting, it may take you only 3 to 4 days. It's something that you can always grow year round inside your house. So it doesn't matter if it's winter time, but it's also when you're unleashing the nutrients out of those tiny little seeds. And the cool thing about it is they're easy to digest. They're very inexpensive because a little bag with seeds will last you a very long time. And if you're really not hoping to spend money on anything fancy, all you need is a mason jar and some cheesecloth that we're going to cut a piece like this. So it's a fairly inexpensive way to grow fresh nutrients in your house. And of course, the seeds are shelf stable, pantry stable. So you don't need to, have fresh produce all the time. The ones that I like to sprout, so I love to sprout lentils. My favorite is probably broccoli seeds. So they're tiny, tiny seeds. And there's some that they call like broccoli spicy mixtures. So there is some with red clover and other little seeds that have like a spicy tanginess to them. Another very common seed to sprout is mung beans. So if you were to go to my Instagram to check the post on the meatballs that uses split mung beans, it's essentially the mung beans with the shell removed and split into half. So they're yellow. But when you're sprouting mung beans, they're actually green and kind of like, I don't know, definitely smaller than a pea, but maybe the size of half a pea, I guess. So they're small, but they sprout, fairly big, and they're very cooling as well. So they're a really good food, especially if you're going through menopause and having hot flashes. A little side note, broccoli, mung bean sprouts are good for that as well. Anyways, so just to give you some ideas of ways that you can store your food a little longer, really ways to make sure we're wasting as little as possible, because when food supply is difficult to get, we need to find all sorts of ways, but also just good practice going forward to be really mindful and careful of how of what we toss in the trash that could actually be good, and also looking for ways like the dehydrated vegetables and rice if you're shopping and looking for alternatives of ways to bring vegetables into your diet, even if right now you're not able to just freely shop for the fresh produce as we used to. So if there's any questions, we will be happy to address. If you have any other ideas of fun ways to either stretch your grocery budget or to really keep food and produce longer, please add them in the comments. We're always happy to hear what others have to share. So that is it for now, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.